Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This for UFC Vegas 48. I'm Paul Shaughnessy, joined on the line by Cody Saftic. Now, our setup is going to be a little bit bare bones here this week. Pat's down in Vegas collecting all of these awards, FSWA, FTST, I don't know. FS, Fantasy Sports something or other awards. Pat's down there doing some business stuff, so it's literally just us. And I was like, you know what? I could switch with a keyboard by myself, but it's really all going to be the same at the end of the day. And yeah, we're recording this a day early this week as well because great news coming around the corner. I'm going to be, for the next 3 days and maybe into the weekend if I have to, going to be setting up our brand new studio, Mayo Media Network Enterprises, whatever you want to call it. Our main headquarters is finally set up that I can start bringing all of our cameras and equipment and yada, yada, yada. So going to be a busy few days for me, but so yeah, that's why we're getting it out a little bit ahead of time. I mean, cause for a celebration. Both of us, I went 8-1 on my posted picks this week. One that Connor Bucks won his listeners league for the MMA hour on DraftKings. I mean, everything I touched this past week, and it's good because it's been like a rough 2 months, but everything I touched just turned to gold. Like it was great. It was definitely well needed to get those balances back up and comfortable. I did not withdraw anything because it's like you got to be ready for an incoming storm. But I saw that you cashed bigly as well, so it feels good to get back on track.
Yeah, for sure. We've been slowly getting back on track the last couple of weeks, hitting top tickets, and then this week again it was top tickets, but 11 of 14 fights overall. Yeah, like you said, everything just kind of lined up. So it was a big pay-per-view. They were big fights. We had big results. Exciting times. And then you got to go from that over to Jamie Pickett in a co-main event. Who comes up with this crap? Jamie Pickett in a co-main event. Crazy. If I'm Jim Miller, the longest tenured guy in UFC history, right? He's got like most UFC fights. How does he not slot in there against a legitimate enough Brazilian prospect? Crazy times, Paul Shaughnessy. But if we can find the value, then that's what we're hunting, and that's exactly why we're here. So unfortunately, it looks like a cheap budget card, and we are going to have cheap budget production for this one because, moving to a bigger studio and bigger and better things.
The production is going to be taking a massive step up from this side right after this episode. So it is what it is. Anyway, let's get into the main event of UFC Vegas 48. We got Jamahal Hill taking on Johnny Walker, minus 250 Hill, plus 200 Walker. Cody Saftic, take it away.
Just feel like Jamahal Hill's got the better hands. He's going to clip him at some point, and I just don't love Johnny Walker's ability to take a punch. So again, we're looking at him from a historical standpoint to see where he's at. His losses: Wagner Prado, UFC veteran once upon a time, second round TKO. Clinton Abreu, second round submission, and then Henrique Silva. These are UFC veterans, by the way, but low end ones. 18-second knockout into the first round. So well established now right there. Anytime you lose a fight in 18 seconds, anytime you lose a fight less than a minute, it is kind of cause for concern in what kind of faith you can have in a guy like this moving forward. But beyond that, we're going to look at his fifth pro loss, Corey Anderson. Corey Anderson had no knockout wins in the UFC. Known as a decision guy, wrestler, 24/7 Anderson, overtime Anderson, 25-8. What am I saying? 24/7. Just 25-8 beast in mode. Yeah. Beast in 25-8, overtime Anderson. And yet he knocks him out 2 minutes in the first round. Everything he threw that night was just sharp and everything hit the money. Top was over Walker. He's got no chin. I don't think he's got a great ability to take a punch. Now his losses since then, Nikita Krylov just out wrestles him, takes him down 3 times. He shows bad takedown defense in that fight. Then the Ryan Spann fight, he got knocked down twice. 2 recorded knockdowns in the first round before he ends up turning the tables and knocking out Ryan Spann. That's fair. We know his explosiveness. We know his ability to clip guys, but he clips Spann. He clips Misha Cherkinov. He clips Justin Ledet, Khalil Roundtree. And by the way, most of those guys, not relevant in the division, but it's so exciting, Paul. The highlight reels are ridiculous. The guy's spinning back fists and a flying knee. That talks him up to that fight with Thiago Santos. So when he was on his roll, super exciting roll, he was training with these guys in Brazil. Bails on them, goes to Thailand for a bit, bails on that, goes to TriStar. Now his career's starting to fall apart, leaves TriStar and goes to SPG Ireland. That was supposed to get him back going. And we can't spend too much time on it because you and I could spend an hour talking about the John Kavanagh advice and just the overall Thiago Santos fight. But the worst version of John, the only thing the guy actually did good
ruined him.
Was that explosiveness and that ability to maybe land something. He's like puncher's chance personified. That was the only good part about his game. Can't wrestle, right? Ground game, chin, no good. Cardio, not great. All of that, no good. But he took away the one thing that did kind of make him credible and kind of make him dangerous. And Thiago Santos fought the world's worst fight as well. Terrible performance from both guys, but just exceptionally bad from Walker. And he didn't have an ability to recognize that things were going south. And his corner didn't have an ability. They're telling him, you're going to win the fight with your feints. You're not. I can assure you. You're going to win the fight with strikes. Got to strike this guy. But he couldn't. So this one's interesting to me, right? So Walker's got an 82-inch reach. And against Thiago Santos, Santos has got a 76-inch reach. So it's a 6-inch reach advantage. And Thiago Santos kind of come up short on a vast majority of his punches. How do you land it? I think he knocks out Walker. But he was hesitant. Double knee surgery, has not looked good since the double knee surgery, needs a victory. He fought a hesitant game plan. Jamahal Hill, 79-inch reach, and uses every bit of it. Sharp, snappy jab, good right hand down the middle. Shows legitimate KO victories. I mean, you look at the Jimmy Crute fight. Jimmy Crute's young, got a good chin, knocks him out like nothing. Hot knife through butter. Alvin St. Preux, a guy who historically has a good chin. Went 3 rounds with Glover Teixeira, went 5 rounds with John Jones. Has 2 or 3 knockout losses in the UFC, especially at light heavyweight. I don't know. He's got legit power. If he hits Walker, he's going to hurt him. So now it comes down to ground game. I don't think Hill has the greatest ground game. He's listed as a BJJ blue belt. If you look at the Paul Craig fight, he re-engages Craig on the ground, which is a rookie mistake, and then eventually gets his arm snapped as a result. But against Johnny Walker, again, I don't think Walker's taking Hill down. And as long as Hill doesn't initiate any ground sequences, he should just be able to keep it standing, keep it to the outside, chip him away, and catch him at some point. So the odds aren't great because you have a guy that could still be dynamite in Johnny Walker, and you got a fight that's probably going to stay standing and someone's getting knocked out. So I don't love the odds for Hill, but that's the pick.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to that, to be perfectly honest. I think it really comes down to volume. And yeah, SBG Ireland ruined what was a very exciting fighter. But the volume, regardless of where he was training, was just never really there for Johnny Walker. He's like in a 3-round fight, if he goes 3 rounds, he's like a 50 significant strike kind of guy. Whereas Hill, he got off, what was that, 101 significant strikes against Darko Stosic. So, yeah.
Even with all those takedowns.
He did give up 6 takedowns, though.
Yeah, and he still landed huge volume.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
So he was able to get
UFC debut.
Yeah, and that was against a really, really short opponent that had leverage on him. And yeah, UFC debut. Yeah, I think it really comes down to durability, side with Hill. Grappling, it could be a wash. Maybe Walker has an advantage there, but he doesn't really have much wrestling, so that point is also mute. I think it really comes down to volume, and one guy over the course of 3 rounds is probably going to land, 70 significant strikes. Johnny Walker just came off of a 5-round fight where he landed 48 significant strikes, and they just turned him into a boring point fighter. I don't know where the strategy was for him there. I mean, they're gonna end up he's gonna end up losing his job in the UFC if he continues to fight like that, because that's not what the people are here for. So I'm 100% with you. I like it. The only thing it really comes down to is price. Don't love laying minus 250 on Hill, but we haven't really seen him all that rocked in any of his fights, and I think that's legitimately Johnny Walker's main path to victory. Moving on down, we got Kyle Daukaus taking on Jamie Pickett in the co-main event. Daukaus minus 250, Pickett plus 200. I imagine you're picking Kyle Daukaus here, who has a much more well-rounded skill set. Pickett's another guy who's pretty low volume in most of his fights. Very, very strong. Has long reach, doesn't use it very well. But I think the real path to victory here for Kyle Daukaus is take this fight to the mat, where he should have a sizable advantage. So I think Daukaus is a rightful favorite at minus 250 against Jamie Pickett. What about you?
Yeah, much of the same. The only thing that could maybe cause for concern is if Jamie Pickett just spam clinches up against the cage, because that's largely what he's done in his last 2 fights, and he's had success doing it. So no reason to believe that he could not go out there with a similar type game plan. But yeah, I don't mind Kyle Daukaus. He shows big wins on the regional scene. Jonathan Webb, UFC veteran, Michael Lombardo, ATT, good wrestling, strong guy physically. And then he's had glimpses of good moments in all of his UFC fights, right? The Brandon Allen fight, takes it on short notice, loses the first couple rounds, but cardio stands out pretty good. And in the 3rd round, his best round of all 3, you can see that there's something there for sure. Him and his brother, BJJ black belts out of Martinez BJJ, striking, both of them, good boxing. I think this kid's starting to put it together, right? The Dustin Stolfus fights looks good, not great, but grappling checks out in that spot. And then now this Phil Haas fight. In another world, man, he could have won that fight. He had Haas hurt. He was making him work. It's just the repeated takedowns against a former guy that was a junior college national champion and a former D1 collegiate guy who's just a physical specimen, kind of wore him down. But again, good moments. And then Kevin Holland. So I back him in this spot. Kevin Holland, we all know he can't wrestle. And this is really the fight that's going to tell us that. It's plus 150 on Daukaus. And you'll remember, because this is the night. What's the rest of this card? The rest of this card is Thiago Santos, who we had right. Nico Price over Alex Oliveira. We got it. Krzysztof Jotko over Churkinov. We got it. Alexander Hernandez versus Mike Breeden. We got it. Jared Gordon over Joe Selecki. And we had it. Casey O'Neill over Shevchenko. Had it. Carl Rosa over Getch Correa. Jamie Malarkey over Devontae Smith. Douglas D'Andrade over Gaetano Perello. Stephanie Egger versus Shayna Young. Alejandro Perez Eduardo. It was the PRP night. We hit everything. And the plus 150 on Daukaus would have skyrocketed that money. And it's a no contest. And it was a bum-ass no contest because they let it continue. They didn't just stop it on a headbutt. They let them fight on, and he rear naked choked him. So you can't take anything away from his performance. His striking looked better in that fight. His wrestling, he was getting Holland down. Regardless of the headbutt, I thought everything looked good. And when the fight did hit the ground, again, tight. Holland was responding. He was talking, right? So now he's regained focus. He's regained conscious. The fight has continued. He's a BJJ black belt, but Daukaus on his back, that was a slick little choke. I like everything he does. I think he mixes it up well, whereas Jamie Pickett's wins over Joseph Holmes, and it's a very bad fight where he smothers him up against the cage, and Leonardo Staropoli, or he just smothers him up against the cage. Striking doesn't look great for a guy with a long reach. Durability is good. I think that he can go some rounds. He can take some shots, but I don't think his game's well-rounded enough. So hopefully Daukaus just gets easy takedowns. I don't know that they'll be super easy, but even if they're not, he'll come forward. I think he's going to have the faster hand speed, and he should just chip away at him. So again, I would take Daukaus. I don't love the price tag. Agree he's a favorite. Agree on a 2-1. Once you start getting into that 250 and it swells up a little bit more, you don't know how much investment you want on it total. But yeah, no, I think he should win this fight. Yes.
All right, we got Nickolas Motta taking on Jim Miller. Motta is a minus 180 favorite. Jim Miller can be had for plus 155. I don't get this, Cody. I know see, this is my problem with like talking to you about this one though. You're going to be like, Jim Miller's old. He's 30, he's 37, 38, maybe even more. Jim Miller is 38 years old. So I already know where Cody's going with this. But like when they opened this fight, because these guys were supposed to fight a while ago. When they opened this fight up, like 3-4 months ago, when these guys were supposed to originally go at it, it was like a pick'em. What has happened since then? Motta hasn't fought. He's only, he's had like opponents pull out. He's pulled out. And Jim Miller, I mean, he did get rocked in the first round last time out against Eric Gonzalez, but then follows it up with a overhand left knockout finish, round 2. Gets the job done. Was it 100% pretty? No. Round 1, he did get a little bit hurt. Is it possible that we're at the end of the line here? Yeah, for sure. But like, who is betting Nickolas Motta up to this number right now? Where are the syndicates? Are the syndicates laying the wood here? Because like I went back and watched his fight against Joseph Lowry, and like I wasn't all that impressed with Joseph Lowry, and he was landing shots on him. Like Motta messed up that dude's face. That guy was super, super tough. Kept moving forward. I had this like big cut on his face, and and all of that. But like Lowry was landing some strikes in his own right. And I also went back and watched, now this is, going back quite a ways, but his time on Ultimate Fighter Brazil Season 4 and getting taken down pretty consistently by Glaico Franca and getting submitted in round 2, and he looked pretty gassed in round 2. Now, that was 6 years ago, so I expect Nickolas Motta to have made some significant improvements. I do see he's got a knockout win over Joe Selecki. That's a good dub, don't get me wrong, but I think this is a straight-up dog or pass situation. Give me the old warhorse, Jim Miller. What about you?
Sorry, I'm not going to totally disagree with you on this point. Yeah, I think I want to like Motta, but at the price, I don't like him. And when you're looking at potential apple pie shitters, because of course, not all the favorites are going to win, who's going to blow it? This guy's got a sense of he might blow it. So just to topple on what you're saying, his losses, right? He gets submitted by Claudio Marcolino in his third fight or something, right? Gives up a guillotine choke loss, one of Jim Miller's best weapons. Gets on the Ultimate Fighter. His ground game hadn't improved since that loss in the Ultimate Fighter, right? He's a striker. This guy wants to strike. That's what he's at heart. I think he shoot to box Brazil and Diego Lima, but the guy wants to bang, right? Doesn't work out for him on the Ultimate Fighter. They don't, even though he goes 1-1, they don't bring him into the fold. They don't give him that one UFC fight. He goes back to the regional scene. Losses, right? Antonio Carlos Ribeiro, first round knockout, minute 8. He gets clipped and he just topples over. Not a great look. Then Daniel Levy's boy, right? Robert Hale. Holy shit, what a fight this is. But Robert Hale drops him like a minute, maybe not even a minute into the fight. Robert Hale drops him. Motta gets up. He goes crazy berserk mode. Actually hurts Hale, right? Hale gets up and then just machine gun punches his lights out. 246 into the first round. So he doesn't got a great chin, right? Subsequent wins, the Joseph Lowry fight. Again, he's getting touched up by the jab by Lowry, but he would take 2 or 3 minutes off of every round and then throw punches for the rest. But he'd sit and wait, and then explode with 3 big punches. And it just so happens that those 3 big punches would hit Lowry every single time. He did bust up Lowry, but he's not a volume guy. I don't think he's a huge power guy. And beyond all that, all the fights we just talked about, Lowry, Gonzalez, Cesar Balsameda, Robert Hale, they're not taking him down. But I don't know how good his takedown defense is. All of his fights is stand and bang. He stands and bang with guys. So Jim Miller presents 2 problems. On one hand, he's a wrestler and he's a BJJ black belt. He's the first guy in a long time that could, in theory, go out there and take down Nickolas Motta. He shows takedowns in a vast majority of his fights, and he's taken dudes like Vince Pichel down, who's just a physically very strong beast of a man. Yeah, you know what? Jim Miller is live to maybe get a takedown. You've seen Nickolas Motta get submitted before. So Jim Miller, who's got an excellent submission game, is also live for submission. But low-key, Jim Miller can bang. You saw that in the Eric Gonzalez fight where he folds him with the left hand. You've seen that in the fight with Roosevelt Roberts where he folded him before he got him with the armbar. You've seen that in the fight with Jason Gonzalez. Like, he doesn't show a whole lot of knockout wins because he hits guys, hurts them, they go to the ground, and then he ends up choking them out. But against Motta, he's live to clip this guy as well. All those things make him a live underdog. They all make him a dangerous guy. There's just one thing, Paul. He's 38 years old.
I knew it.
He's got Lyme disease, Paul. I don't know that he can fight 2 hard rounds, 3 hard rounds. And Motta can because he conserves well.
The Lyme disease for a while. I don't think you ever actually
get over Lyme disease. I don't think there's a cure.
I don't think there is.
You can minimize the effects maybe, but I don't think it's curable. And just to piggyback on the 38 years old Lyme disease thing, against Roosevelt Roberts, he wins in the first round. Clay Guida wins in the first round. Eric Gonzalez 14 seconds into round 2. So of course he's always live for that first round finish, and that's something you and I have discussed at length the last 5 to 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. The losses, though, he starts off well against Vince Pichel, and then he totally fades. And he wins the first round against Joe Selecki, trips him to the ground, gets on top, spends the rest of the round in guard. Good first round for Jim Miller. He slows down in the second and the third. Eric Gonzalez is a bum, shouldn't have been in that spot to begin with. And so Jim can still win those fights. But against Motta, if he doesn't take him down and he's forced to stand for the first round, yeah, he'll have some success. Maybe he drops him, like we're talking about sneaky power. But if it goes to his second or the third, this kid does crack. And again, if the wrestling doesn't get going for him, he's going to be forced to stand and take it. And it could persuade the judges. So As much as I recognize live underdog, 100%, maybe Motta's the PRP pick. Like maybe he's all the way at the bottom because we can recognize he could shit in the apple pie. I don't think I got the cojones to pull up a straight up Jim Miller. I recognize the points. I really do. Don't think I get the cojones to pull it straight up.
I'm going to bet Jim Miller. Why not? I just think...
Why not?
There's nothing Motta does. Jim Miller's what? How many... I believe he has the record for most UFC fights. He passed Donald Cerrone in his last fight. And I think it was... How many fights does he have in total? He's 33, 60. I think he's got, this is his 39th UFC fight, which is absolutely absurd. So you got somebody making their UFC debut, against someone with 39 fights in the world's number one promotion. What a legend. I'm going to back him. Can't help it. Plus 155. I think this should probably be... There's enough questions that leads me to believe that even at 38 years old with Lyme disease, that I'm going to back the old war horse at plus 155 in a fight that I think, because of all of these experience intangibles and all of that, should probably be a pick 'em. Moving on down, we've got Joaquin Buckley taking on Abdul Razak Alhassan. Minus 145 Buckley, plus 125 Alhassan. Over under in this one, which is probably going to be a very popular bet. Minus 115 to the over, or minus 115 for both sides, and it's a 1.5. You watch both of these guys fight, the flashy techniques, the brutal power. Somebody should be taking a canvas nap here. Do you have a hard lean? I think I'm going to just end up by chance just having money on the under here. Because if it's at a pick 'em right now, I'm expecting that under to get juiced as we go along. Because both of these guys go out there and try to get the job done as early as possible. Especially Abdul Razak Alhassan, who doesn't really typically have 3-round cardio whatsoever. He's a finish guy. In terms of a pick between the two of them, I'll listen to what you have to say because I'm really, really torn on this one. But the under, I think, is just a let's get after it type of if you want to gamble, I think that's a pretty good gamble at minus 115. What about you?
Yeah, as long as they're not hesitant, and that's the thing with Buckley is that he might be a tad hesitant. He got knocked out by Alicio Di Chirico. Bad look. And then the fight with Antonio Arroyo, he looked awful because he wasn't overly willing to engage him. So against Hassan, the guy cracks. He's got monstrous power. It's not mentally, it's hard to be like, yeah, I'm just going to throw down with this guy. He might come out a tad bit hesitant, but straight up, man, fight gets announced, I'm thinking Joaquin Buckley all day. Line gets announced minus 145, I'm thinking Joaquin Buckley. You do the tape study for it, and you get a queasy feeling that Joaquin Buckley, again, another potential apple pie shitter. Bellator released him after a 3-2 run. Don't got to spend too much time talking about that, but Jackie Gosh does clip him, knock him out in the first round. Jackie Gosh, an older fighter from Israel, maybe not the greatest chin. So his Kevin Holland fight, debut, short notice, swings, absolute hammers, but he tires out. And then 32 seconds into the third round, Kevin Holland puts him away. Okay, second time he's been knocked out. He lands the greatest knockout of all time against Ipik and Sanganai. And I think that's the reason his stock is just so high. It's the greatest knockout of all times. It really is. Edson Barbosa versus Terry Edom was the previous greatest knockout of all times. And this thing surpassed it, man. Crazy. But that's put his stock up super high. You got to keep in mind, these are the fights since then. Jordan Wright didn't look good in the first round. Didn't actually engage right for the first 4 minutes, then clipped him in the last minute, almost knocked him out, knocks him out in the second. Bad start, slow start. Next fight against Di Chirico, slow start, not engaging him. Stands right in front of the guy, staring right at him, and Di Chirico puts a kick lopside his head. Second bad start in a row, 1-1. Then this Antonio Arroyo fight. Paul, I got Joaquin Buckley on all my tickets, right? How's he going to lose to Antonio Arroyo, who has no cardio and really no substance to his game? This is an easy money fight. Oh my God, what a greasy sweat. He does nothing. He just stands in front of him and stares at him. Let me bring up the official numbers on it. But for the vast majority of the first 2 rounds, he lands 15 strikes in the first, 12 strikes in the second. Thank God Arroyo also does nothing. But it's a problem with Buckley. He just doesn't do anything. Now in the third, I don't know if it's 1-1. I don't know what they got this thing scored. Nothing's really happened. And Buckley goes out there and gets the job done, gets the finish, puts him away. It's a nice knockout. Clearly, the kid does have power, no doubt about it. But as far as I'm concerned, Jordan Wright fight, not great. Striegl fight, awful. Arroyo fight, awful, right? He's 2-1 over those 3 fights, but there's something you don't necessarily love about that. And with Alhassan, he's got a tremendous amount of power. He shows bad fights as well, but Jacob Malkoun took him down 8 times. Malkoun, obviously, we've seen that. Kind of a grinder, kind of a smotherer, something that's going to suffocate you. So that's a difficult fight. Manur Lazez, well, he took him down 4 times, right? Excellent game plan. Stayed at range, stayed long, mixed in the takedowns. And Chaos Williams, he's another one of these banger type guys that if he touches you, you're going to sleep. And he happened to hit him. But you can't take away the fact that he's got a legitimate win over Nico Price, right? He's got a legitimate win over Alicio Di Chirico in his last fight in just 17 seconds. He's got more than enough power to knock out Buckley. Buckley's not going to be a guy that's going to wrestle like some of these other guys have done. Therefore, he's going to be forced to stand with this guy. And low key, they both got bad cardio. And if they both get sloppy, I think Alhassan's got a better chin. I think Alhassan's got the firepower. I think Alhassan probably could clip him in the second and third round and put him away. But my gut still tells me Buckley finds a way. But it's just dangerous. I want to love it. Gets announced, love it. Price gets announced, love it. Do the tape study on it. Got a feeling that Buckley gets tired at some point, gets clipped. And that's just a bad feeling to have. So what are we going to do? Pick favorites the entire way through? We need an underdog at some point. I'll take Abdul, Razak, Alhassan.
All right. I'll double up with you. Him by knockout. What's that thing right now? Yeah,
that's a good price too. Or, well, I don't know if it's a good price, but it's a good outlook for the fight, right?
Alhassan by KO. Where are we here? Plus 225. It's getting you another, it's 125 up to 225. It is giving you a bit. And that is very, very likely. Like, if you're betting Alhassan and he doesn't get the knockout, you're not feeling great in round 3, right? Like, if you're getting deep into this fight, you're not loving it. Anyway, Alhassan is the pick for both of us. Moving on down, we've got Parker Porter taking on Alan Baudot. Minus 250 Parker Porter, plus 200 Baudot. I can't imagine you're picking Baudot here, because Baudot may be one of the worst heavyweights that we've ever seen in the UFC.
Well, we need to discuss this fight, because why is Parker Porter only minus 250? Like, Parker Porter, as far as I'm concerned, at this price, is top ticket material.
Nobody wants to.
They don't want to touch Parker Porter as top ticket kind of guy.
They don't want to touch him at minus.
I wouldn't either.
It's dicey. This whole card is pretty dicey. Like, you gotta put yourself in some uncomfortable positions if you want to bet this card for sure. But I agree with you. It's just like risks. Parker Porter puts up like 140 significant strikes in some of these heavyweight fights. I'm not sure Baudot can do that. Back in the day when he lost to Todd Stout, that was at 205. Like, he was getting boxed up on the feet in that fight. Like, I'm not sure what this guy's good at. I know that he's like the training partner for Ciryl Gane. And, he probably put in some work with Francis Ngannou back in the day. But yeah, like, it doesn't really make any sense to me. Like, I have no interest whatsoever. I guess in theory he is a striker. Can he catch Parker Porter? I just haven't seen enough from Baudot to lead me to believe that, like, he's all that good really at anything on the feet. Like, I don't know. I must be missing something with this guy, but I just don't really see. I don't see very much power in his hands. He's obviously a horrendous grappler. Like, there's really not too many redeeming qualities for Alan Baudot.
And that's why I'm shocked that it's still like a bettable line. Like, Parker Porter's coming off the 2 best wins of his career, and Alan Baudot is Alan Baudot. Like, what the hell is going on here? But yeah, straight up, this is the way I see it on like a personal level. Nothing really makes sense about Baudot in general. So he's coming from a judo background. He's supposed to have some judo, and he gets a late start to his career in the sense that he had been fighting these like open weight, weird fights in Japan with mixed rules for like a vast majority of it, until he fights Dalcha Lungumbulia, who we see in the UFC, in a EFC Africa title fight, 205 pounds. He weighs in at 205 pounds. Okay. He gets knocked out in 26 seconds because it's the first time he's actually fought a legitimate fighter. Everybody else prior to that, complete bums, or balloon records. The first time he steps up, he lasts approximately 26 seconds. He beats an 0-2 opponent after that. Then he gets Todd Stout in Montreal. You can go to the fight. It's TKO. Love TKO. He weighs in at 205 pounds. Todd Stout is a banger. Todd Stout is a physically very strong guy. Loves to strike. Todd Stout's one kryptonite throughout the entirety of his career is he can't grapple. He's not a good wrestler. He's not a good grappler. That's how you beat Todd Stout. Todd Stout comes out of this fight like a man on fire. He just dominates Baudot pillar to post. He outstrikes him. He takes him down. He dominates him on the ground. He outlasts him. He pounds him. And he picks up the first submission victory of his career. The place goes nuts. Holy shit. Todd Stout submitted the guy. Crazy. Now, Todd Stout tests positive for the reefer after the fight. And the Quebec Commission opts not to make it a no contest. They opt to disqualify him, giving the win to Alan Baudot. So he shows a win over Todd Stout in his last fight coming to the UFC when he got dominated. Look at it up.
I've watched that fight multiple times, taping him, trying to wonder how he's in the UFC.
So he's coming off a loss. How many guys get signed to the UFC coming off a loss? Unless it was on the Contender Series and they put up a damn good fight or something like that. This just doesn't happen. No. But they bring him in, and this is what I'm getting at. Fights Dolce at 205. Fights Todd Stout at 205. The UFC brings him in inexplicably against Tom Aspinall. He hits the scales at 254 pounds, Paul. How? How did he put on 50 pounds from the Todd Stout fight? So he shows up. He looks awful. He's not a heavyweight. Everybody knows it. Guy's got the frame of a middleweight, but he's up. And he proceeds to get absolutely annihilated, non-competitive squash match of all squash matches. Okay, fair. They book him against Rodrigo Nascimento. I thought that was a head scratcher because why is he not going back to 205? Well, why is he hanging in at heavyweight? And he actually comes into that fight at 246. So he loses, 8 pounds from his short notice debut, gets in shape for this one. And you know what? His striking looked a lot better. He wins the first round against Nascimento. He's able to back him up. He's able to land some decent enough combinations, but doesn't show any real power. And in the second round, Nascimento just leans on him against the cage, and Baudot tires. His chin, not good, and he ends up getting TKO'd a minute and a half into the second. But he did start out a lot better. I'll have to give him that. He just wasn't able to sustain it. And sustainability is the best part of Parker Porter's game. He's a tank little engine. You better knock him out early, because if not, he's going to keep swarming you. And we've hit a couple decent tickets with him here. In the last one, Chase Sherman, that was probably the best of which. But look at these numbers, Paul. It's disgusting for heavyweights. His last fight, he lands 149 significant strikes and a takedown over the course of 15 minutes. For a dude that tips the scale at 262, right? That's huge. The fight before that against Josh Parisian, 126 significant strikes and 2 takedowns landed. If this thing stays standing, he's going to box him up. He's going to break him. He's TKOing him. And then low key, did I not mention 2 takedowns against Josh Parisian, 1 against Chase Sherman? He could easily just go take down Alan Baudot and smash him on top and not even risk getting caught standing. Yeah. Wherever Parker Porter wants to win this fight, he should. His cardio is good. He's got all these things going. So how does he lose this fight? I'm scratching my head. How does he lose this fight?
Knocked out, I guess.
Anybody could potentially get clipped and get knocked out. And that's the last thing I'll give Parker Porter. He shows knockout losses to Chris Daukaus, an unbelievably hard hitter in the division. And he got dropped hard early in that fight, got back up, ends up getting knocked out later. But Daukaus, a legit hitter. His other knockout losses include Josh Dykman, huge guy, John Jones, and that's it. That's it. So he's not a guy that's been not durable. He's traditionally durable, good cardio, good pace, weighs in at 262, legit heavyweight. The advantage standing, the advantage on the ground, the advantage experience-wise, minus 250, but it is middling heavyweights, Paul. It is middling heavyweights. And other than that, I can't think of any other reason why Parker Porter shouldn't absolutely romp. The other thing is I can't bring up best fight odds, but money's coming in the other way, no? Wasn't it 3-1 Parker Porter a few days ago?
Let's see here. I've got best fight odds loaded up right here. Parker Porter. No, it was opened at minus 200, and people are moving in on Parker Porter.
Wow, absolutely. I think he's likely your best pick of the week.
DraftKings Sportsbook went from minus 255 to plus 250. So I suppose you could say it only moved 5 points, which is literally
jump on it now. It's going to 3-1.
I think it should go to 3-1. I think it will go to 3-1. Some people are just probably taking hey, it's heavyweight. Both of them are low level. they're taking the shot. But I think there's better shots to be taken for those same price. I mean, I'd rather bet Johnny Walker at 2-1 rather than Baudot, to be perfectly honest.
That's fair.
But I'm not touching either of them, to be perfectly. Well, no. I'll find a way to work Parker Porter into the mix, but not as excited about Hill. I like Parker Porter a lot more than Hill, I think. I just feel so poorly about Alan Baudot that that's where I am. All right, moving on down. We've got Chad Anheliger versus Jesse Strader. Anheliger is a minus 290 favorite. Jesse Strader is plus 230. I looked at these odds initially, Cody, and I was like, there's got to be some sort of reason to fade Anheliger at this price tag. So I went back, and I know it was a tough matchup for Strader against Montel Jackson, who's a massive dude in this division. Really long reach, but it's like he was just kind of charging in there. Got knocked down twice. It was not pretty whatsoever. Went back and watched Anheliger versus Muin Gafarov on the Contender Series, and it wasn't exactly a pretty fight whatsoever either, but at least he seemed to have a bit of a get-up game. On the feed, he was landing some strikes. It was a competitive fight. Some people don't even think he really necessarily won that fight, but the level of skill seems warranted, to be perfectly honest. I wanted all of the reasons to fade him. I'll fade him probably at some other point down the line here, but Jesse Strader, I'm not sure where they found this guy. He's looks like he's probably like knockout or bust. Like he's gonna have to land the perfect shot to get the job done in this fight, and I don't know. I just don't really see too many redeeming qualities from him. So as much as I hate it, Anheliger is the pick for me. What about you?
Yeah, I thought the odds were a little bit wide just because, again, he's making his UFC debut and, he's coming from the Canadian regional scene. Just don't know necessarily how it's going to translate. But yeah, I have to agree that Chad Anheliger is definitely the rightful choice. It's already been covered on Contender Series, obviously. He starts off his career 2-5, and he's getting submitted by some low-level Canadian guys. It's not a good start to an MMA career, but he makes a choice. This is what I want to do. I need to be as serious as possible. He moves over to Champions Creed in Alberta, same camp as Hakeem Dawodu, and similar to Hakeem Dawodu, he's just made like infinite improvements, and he shows legitimate wins. James Mancini is a Commonwealth bronze medalist for Canada, one of the best Canadian wrestlers that we had produced, chokes him out in the first round. Randy Turner, he was one of the top-ranked flyweights in the country. He submits Randy Turner in the first round. Terrence Chan knocks him out in the first round, scheduled for a 5-rounder. Craig McLean, scheduled for a 5-rounder, knocks him out in the third. Brady Highstand, you just seen him on The Ultimate Fighter. You've seen him in the UFC. Looks like the kid's got a really promising future. Mm-hmm. Scheduled for a 5-rounder. Breaks him 37 seconds into the third. He drags these guys into deep waters. That's where he has his best work. When he debuted against Muin Gafarov, listen, I like Anheliger. He's now moved himself to being one of the best flyweight in the country because he can fight at 25 and 35. Best flyweight in the country. And as far as 35, he's one of the best guys in the country. But Muin Gafarov is another type of beast, one FC veteran, very physically strong, fights with that Russian style. He's going to be a problem for sure. First round, Muin Gafarov is leaning on him. He is taking him down. He's doing some good work. But Chad remains composed, gets his way back up. And then he drops Muin Gafarov in that first round. That's what steals the round for him. Second round, Muin goes right back to the wrestling, takes him down some more, grinds him. It's a Muin Gafarov round. But in the third, Chad's cardio, it shows up again. I think he outstrikes him 2-1 in the third round, like 19-10, basically, for Chad Anheliger. But the cardio checks out. He's fighting a much bigger man, a much more physically strong guy. He gave up the 5 takedowns, but his submission defense looked good, cardio looked good, desire to win looked good. He's 35 years old. It was a very close fight. I know some people were complaining about it, and it wasn't a contract-winning type of fight.
No.
But Dana realizes the kid is on kid. He's 35 years old, and he's on a 9-fight winning streak. What more can you do, right? So you do give him the contract. It is the right thing to do, and now he's getting the shot in the UFC, and they've done him a hell of a favor by giving him Jesse Strader. Jesse Strader is Aaron Carter's boxing coach. Yes, you heard that. Aaron Carter, the younger brother of Backstreet Boys, is Nick Carter. And whereas that was a laughable joke at some time, Paul Shaughnessy, he's Aaron Carter. It was like, wow, maybe Aaron Carter's got hands. And then you see Aaron Carter box Lamar Odom in a charity boxing match.
He doesn't have hands.
At that point, you realize Aaron Carter, in fact, does not have hands. I think Jesse Strader is just very basic, man. He's 30 years old. He's got 6 fights over the course of 2017. He would fight once in 2017, 3 times in 2018, knocked out by Marcelo Rojo, fights twice in 2019, all for Combate Americas against 1-3 opponent, 2-1 opponent, 3-4 opponent. And then he takes 2 full years off before he fought Montel Jackson. Like, how did he get in the UFC to begin with? And he's a monster underdog, and he performs like a monster underdog and just gets absolutely crushed. And then subsequent to that, he's now taken another year off, pulled out of the Manny Martinez fight, and has quietly sat on the sidelines. I don't know what the redeeming quality to him is. I know that in Combate, he would just rib roast guys, right? He's got a style that's really heavily predicated on just working the body. And the thing with working the body, and I love it, is it pays dividends the later the fight goes. So if you work the guy's body early, just like leg kicks, you work it early, the later the fight goes, oh my God, the guy's tired all of a sudden, or he can't move on his leg and stuff. Okay, so his problem is he only has 5 minutes worth of cardio. So he invests in the body, and then he himself just gas out to get put away. It's not a good game. Against Chad, who's got a great cardio advantage, is a durable guy that does not get knocked out. Yeah, he's got advantages, man, for sure. Take him down, over. Guillotine choke, easy money. And if you want to stand in front of him, you choose to chase a $50,000 bonus because he's 35 years old, right? Might as well have some fun in there and try and make a little extra money. Maybe Chad goes out and gives him the type of fight he wants, which is a pure striking battle. He probably still wins that too. So yeah, as much as it's like you don't like 3-1, when you go over the scenarios in your head, he seems like he's probably in the neighborhood of minus 250 to 300 favorite. So what are you really complaining about? So yeah. Other than debut and all that, that's what's nerve-wracking about it. But I would rather bet a 35-year-old making his debut than a 22-year-old or a 25-year-old making his debut because, you've got more experience along the way. And last but not least, he just beat Muin Gafurov, whether you agree with it or not. He just went in a close fight, Muin Gafurov. And this is Jesse Strader. This is not, you're in the UFC, they're tougher fights. No. This is a way easier matchup.
Way easier fight. Gotta go, and, Chad. He hasn't been knocked out. He's been subbed, as you mentioned earlier, a whole bunch of times earlier on in his career. But the chin is always held up for him, and the cardio is good. So it's like, just don't get knocked out early against Strader. And, even watching Strader getting knocked out by... we've seen Montel Jackson. It's like a lot of the times he's able to use his grappling to his advantage. He didn't even have to do that. It was just like he just absolutely iced this guy really, really quickly. Like it was not even remotely competitive. And here's Jesse Strader. Maybe he's made a whole bunch of improvements since then, but I think Anheliger is a rightful favorite. As crazy as that sounds. All right, Chad Skelly takes on Mark Striegl, minus 220 Skelly, plus 180 Striegl. Who you got here, bud?
Honestly, I have no idea. I think you might be able to hit a pass. But I want your take on it, and I probably will end up making a pick by the end of the show. Yeah, so here's my problem with Skelly. Obviously, it's a 3-year-long layups. That's my biggest problem. He has not fought since the Jordan Griffin fight in 2019. Since then, he pulled out of the second Grant Dawson matchup with an injury. He pulled out of the Jamahal Emmers fight. Emmers pulled out with back spasms. They booked him with Trizano. He pulled out of that, and now he gets Striegl. It's been the course of 3 years. Mm-hmm. And he was 33 the last time we saw him, but now he's coming back at 36. He's pulled out of a number of fights due to injury. I just don't know what version is coming back. Again, at his best, he was a guy that was a NAIA All-American. He trained at Team Takedown in Texas with Johnny Hendricks and just a plethora of good wrestlers out of the camp for the most part. But yeah, he never really put it all together. I don't think he had wins early on in the UFC. Once goes on that 4-fight winning streak, beats Tom Nitamaki, Sean Soriano, Jim Ehlers, and Melson Souza. It looks like he's going to be legit, and then his career tapered off. And so when you look back at it, and I hate to be that guy, but this is where we're standing for Chad Skelly. Okay, his UFC wins are Tom Nitamaki, long since cut, had no success in the UFC. Sean Soriano, it's your boy. I'm just kidding. You actually are well aware that he's a big liability. And he just recently got released from the UFC for a second time for a good reason. No longer with the promotion. Jim Ehlers is actually my legit boy. He's bare knuckle boxing champion now in a BJJ black belt, but he has zero success in the UFC and has been long since released. Emilson Souza was more of a striker kind of guy, long since released from the UFC. Maxwell Blanco, he was supposed to be something very explosive, good wrestling, long since released from the UFC. Chris Grutzmacher, I think he's clinging on to a job, but as you saw from Chris Grutzmacher's last fight, like he's extremely limited in this case. The wins are low level, right? There's not enough out of it. The losses, meanwhile, Bobby Moffitt's cut. He just released on the weekend. Jason Knight's cut. Darren Elkins is kind of out there. Mirsad Bektic is cut. Basically, all of his wins and losses are guys that are no longer relevant in this division. He hasn't been in this division for 3 years. His wrestling is probably not what it used to be. His grappling's good, but I don't know if it's as good as it used to be. I have no idea. I actually have no idea. And Striegl, meanwhile, he's kind of a bit of a mystery himself. Like, he had a good regional show career on the Southeast Asian regional scene, but he's low in like notable victories. He's low in these like big moments. He can grapple, and if this is grappler versus grappler, I would edge Chad Skelly. As far as whose wrestling's better, 3 years ago at least, it was Chad Skelly. As far as whose striking's better, Chad Skelly doesn't even have bad striking. Knocked out my boy Jamahal was flat. I just don't know. The 3 years is and 36 years old coming back has got me massively spooked.
3 years.
So hit me with your take, man, but I have no idea.
I don't have much of an idea. The problem is with Chad Skelly. It's like 3 years, and I tried to go onto his Instagram right now, just to muck it up in there, see what Chad's been up to. Oh, who's he training with? It's on private.
Oh, that's a bad move. I think he's at Sanford though.
Sure, he could be anywhere.
Could be anywhere.
It's really, you kind of said it. It's like really tough to know what you're going to expect from him. Striegl, I guess, has a ton of submissions on his record. Like, I think he's going to be pretty hard pressed to take down Chad Skelly at will.
All right.
But do I want to bet Chad Skelly off of a 3-year layoff against anybody if I think the fight's just going to take place on the feet? That doesn't sit well with me either. Like, you don't bet this guy for his ability on the feet. Maybe he has an advantage up on the feet, but I think the best way to look at this one is from a live betting perspective. I'll lean towards Chaz, but there is next to no confidence in that pick because I don't know what he's been up to, and boy, do I not want to end up in a situation where I have minus 220 Chaz Skelly in a kickboxing match, because that's not what I sign up for anytime he fights. Like, the only way you ever want to bet him is, hey, he's going to get takedowns, he's going to control from top, maybe he finds a submission as well. Yeah, I mean, if it turns into a kickboxing match, boy, oh boy. I mean, I guess in that situation, maybe Striegel's live. I think it's much safer just to wait this one out. Hit something live if you see something, or watch the weigh-ins. Chaz never looks good at the weigh-ins. Like, he's not exactly a prima donna. He doesn't exactly have the look, as some people would say, but maybe you get a little bit of a read into what he's been up to the last little bit. Because you're right, this is a guy who, he was pretty vocal, and he was usually on like social media and posting and that type of stuff, and it seems like he's kind of just removed himself from the scene. So yeah, sounds like we're both leaning towards Skelly, but we need to investigate a little bit more.
Hoops fans, the latest offer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is too good to pass up. I'm talking between the legs, 360 windmill good. New customers can bet just $1 on any team and get $150 in free bets if they win. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still take your shot at a big payday. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings daily fantasy basketball contests. DraftKings is giving new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DOP. Bet just $1 on any NBA team and get $150 in free bets if they win. That's promo code DOP at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus, minimum age and location requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for a full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Void where prohibited. Minimum $5 deposit. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Tennessee, call or text TN REDLINE. That's 1-800-889-9789. In Connecticut, call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369.
Diana Belbita taking on Gloria de Paula, -110 on both sides. I kind of think Belbita's a good bet here. Like watching Gloria de Paula get knocked out by Cheyenne Velismus in round 1. That doesn't really sit very well with me whatsoever. Belbita has been making some improvements. Obviously, she's only 14-6, but she uses some pretty decent long combinations with her strikes. I think her grappling maybe is a work in progress, but -110, I expect her probably to go off closer to -150 by the time we get to fight time. So I'll side with Stony Creek's own Diana Belbita. What about you?
Yeah, Stony Creek's own Cruellen Helmanjon definitely done an excellent job just getting her from where she was at to where she's at now. And I think that's the big difference here. So she's only 25 years old, but she's got 20 pro fights. Here's her issue. Largely on the Romanian regional scene, her wins include 0-1, 0-0, 1-0, 0-3, that 3-1 balloon, 0-4, 0-2, 4-1. Lubanska was probably her biggest win at that point. But then 0-2, 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 1-2, signed to the UFC. This is probably not going to go great. So she links up with Cruellen over at Iron Tiger, House of Champions, and just does a good job, but she's way behind the 8 ball. She's still only like 23 years old at the time. She's not fought anybody notable. Like, this is not going to go well for her. So Molly McCann exposes her lack of wrestling because coming out of Romania and being a kickboxer, she has absolutely no wrestling. She's still young, cannot wrestle. Molly McCann exposes it. The Lilian Joshua fight, she rocks Joshua standing, presses her up against the cage, will win this fight if she just keeps it standing, and takes her down. I did not understand that one. You're a kickboxer. You don't have a great ground game. In fact, ground game is your weakness. Why take her down? And then takes her down and goes right into an armbar. Bad move, bad ring IQ. At this point, you start to write her off. And then the Hannah Goldie fight. Nah, man, because she's working hard in the gym. She works very, very hard, 6 days a week, twice a day, fully committed to combat sports. That's what she does. Her striking's good. Is that her wrestling and her ground game's no good? But they're drilling hard. Her wrestling's improving. Her ground game's improving. Her cardio's good. And she's getting a lot more confidence. So the Hannah Goldie fight, for the first 2 rounds, she looks awesome. Striking's on point. Her volume's on point. She lands something like 60 significant strikes through the first 2 rounds and scores a legitimately clean knockdown over Hannah Goldie. Things are going well. In the 3rd round, she does land 40 significant strikes. Her cardio still look good. Volume still look good. She does get taken down and she gets mounted with like a minute left. And she does hold on. The ground game's probably still a problem in her game. It's still a deficiency. Some people will be able to take care of it. But I don't know, like Gloria de Paula is going to do it because I've never seen her shoot on anybody. Like all of her fights have been stand-up. She's looking to stand. She's looking to strike with you. And it hasn't particularly gone her way. The Jinyu Frey fight, yeah, I guess Jinyu Frey just neutralized her, taking her down. And then the Cheyenne Velismus fight, Velismus also takes her down, but then just boots her in the head all within the span of a minute. She's got an aggressive style where she's going to come forward. She's going to let her hands go. But I think Belbita should have a little bit better power, should have a little bit better volume. And if she does not take Belbita down, I think it's just going to go volume in the way of Belbita. Even that Contender Series fight against Pauline Macias, she gives up 2 takedowns in that fight. She's just got slightly better volume, but it's not big. It's like 60 significant strikes. Her wrestling is her problem. See, they have the same issue. Both of them actually can't wrestle all that well, but I would think Belbita is making the bigger strides in that department, and I give her the better volume. So I'm going to agree with you. I think she's the better pick, but there's 2 things I don't love: middling heavyweights, even though I'm on Parker Porter, and women's MMA. Like anything could, in theory, happen. I don't know. So I don't know how much I love it, but yeah, that's the pick.
Well, then you're going to love the next one, which is Jessica Rose Clark takes on Stephanie Egger, -190, Jessica Rose Clark, +160, Egger. These fights for Jessica Rose Clark have been pretty greasy. Pretty greasy. Yeah, I mean, getting Alpar was a layup, obviously. Jocelyn Edwards was definitely tagging her on the feet. She had to get the 5 takedowns, and when she did get the takedowns, she was able to control pretty well. The question kind of really becomes here is if they get down to the mat, is she going to, one, be able to control Stephanie Egger, who's pretty strong in her own rights? And 2, does anybody here have like an actual like submission grappling advantage between the two of them? Because it may be Egger as well. I'm struggling with this one. I'm not too interested in betting Jessica Rose Clark at -190. What about you?
Yeah, I probably agree on most points. Again, women's MMA could go either way. There's my issues with Stephanie Egger is that 33 years old, but doesn't have the MMA experience, but a lot of time doing judo. She was like her biggest accolade. She's like the under 23 European champion back in 2010. But then after that, spent a bunch of time pursuing Olympic squads and doing mostly judo. Never had any huge notable success, but that's her base. She's a black belt. She's very physically strong. And yes, when it comes with judo, they'll have an arm bar. They have a submission or two up their sleeve, but I don't know how like naturally refined her game is all around. In MMA, she didn't have a ton of success. Then this King Reina Miura fight in Ryzen, good fight for her, right? Good fight for her. Miura is kind of overrated, but her cardio looked on point. Her striking looked vastly improved. Looked like she could be something. She grapples Gabby Garcia at the ADC trial, ADCCs, and goes to a distance with her. Goes to a distance with a girl that's 200 pounds and just dominates everybody. Like Egger looks somewhat legit at this point, but then that loss to Tracy Cortez, she gives up 3 takedowns. Her striking looks absolutely abysmal. She did get tired. She had no submissions off her back. It was a bad performance. The fight with Shayna Young, early, not great, but then Shayna Young just completely gasses. Egger takes over and just mauls her in that second round, puts her away. The thing with Jess Rose Clark is over those last 2 fights, again, this is not someone like Skelly who is private on Instagram. Like she's heavy on social media. She just power lifts, man. Like physically, she is strong. She's out of Las Vegas, routinely training with the action man, Chris Curtis, and just a great cast of characters down there, but spends a lot of time on her strength and conditioning. So what you see in her last 2 fights, Sarah Alpar, she just dominated her. She really did. Way too physically strong, took her down, mauled her with the ground and pound, puts her away. And then the Jocelyn Edwards fight was kind of weird because did get the takedowns, no ground and pound. Landed like 19 strikes over the course of 15 minutes. Was very, very low, but did have those takedowns. This fight with Egger, she's a better striker, but all of Rose Clark's wins, or all her performing at her best, is in the clinch or taking you down. So she'll probably pursue it. And against a judo black belt, someone who has decent Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it's probably not going to be there. So this fight's likely going to be up against the cage and slight exchanges in the pocket. And I think the slight exchanges probably go Rose Clark's way. And I think that physically in the clinch will be a little bit stronger. I know there's judo, blah, 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 but I don't think Rose Clark's going to get taken down, at least not consistently. And I'm hoping her cardio checks out and it's just a will to wins. So it would edge out for Rose Clark, but I don't know that this is a fight that you want much appeal on. And you mentioned earlier, this is not a card you want. It's, a little bit greasy and it's dicey and there's not a whole lot of spots. And right off the hop, like I would say, Rose Clark Egger is a passable fight. Chad Skelly versus Mark Striegl is a passable fight. And we talked about another one I wouldn't really want a whole lot of part of. I guess I'd be betting everything else. These are 2 fights that just don't scream a whole lot of confidence.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right, we got David Onama taking on Gabriel Mowgli Benitez, -155. Onama +135 for Mowgli. I was really impressed by David Onama. 1, on tape leading up until the Mason Jones fight, and 2, how he powered through against a really legitimate prospect in Mason Jones. Like, it wasn't perfect. His grappling, very, very questionable, but he's not going to have to deal, like, his grappling, by that I mean his wrestling. He's taken down 5 times in that fight. That definitely seems like a hole in his game that he's young, he's working his way up. These are his earlier he's not that young, but he's young in his career. I'm sure he's working on these things every single day. But I was impressed with his ferocity, his durability, the pace that he was able to fight over the course of 15 minutes. Like, that was a hell of a scrap. And that was a really, really hard UFC debut. They aren't really doing any, and that was up at 155 pounds too, which is not his natural weight class. His natural weight class, I mean, natural, however you want to say that. He's going to be massive at 145 pounds, taking on Benitez, who Benitez has been a boy. He's been one of our guys on this show for a long time. But I think we're at the end of the road here, Code. Watching him against Billy Quarantillo, getting dropped in round one, like his durability looks a little bit questionable now. His cardio, when you got into round two, like once he was taken down, not that Onama's going to take him down, but the cardio seemed to falter him as well. The only thing that I really see as a path for him is maybe Onama just struggles to defend the body kicks, because those will probably be coming really, really fierce early and often in this fight. But if you just keep backing Benitez up here, I think David Onama, some people may be surprised, but I think at minus 155, he's actually a pretty decent value side here. Unless Benitez shoots takedowns and that's his game plan here, I think this is actually going to be a pretty tough matchup for him. So David Onama for me. What about you?
Yeah, he hasn't shot a takedown. He hasn't completed a takedown in 4 years.
Exactly.
So and it was like Humberto Bandenay. Like, I just don't know that he's going to be going out there with a wrestling heavy game plan. And listen, I got to agree. I think numbers is the main thing, but I just want to bring up Jim Miller's got 38 UFC fights taking on a guy making his debut. That's kind of what makes it a part dangerous. David Onana, like they must love this guy because he's fighting studs right off the get-go. His debuts against Mason Jones is a highly touted prospect. And then your second outing, you're 0-1 in the organization. Your second outing is against a 12-time UFC veteran, a guy that's been there, done that. But similar to my Chaz Skelly thing, I think Benitez is just he's just one of these gatekeeper type guys at this point. I mean, when you look at, again, hate to knock on the guy, his UFC wins are Humberto Brown, never factored in, cut right away. Clay Collard, long since released from the promotion. Andre Fili, that's a loss. Andre Fili's still cutting it. Sam Cecilio win, long since cut. Jason Knight, long since cut. Humberto Bandenay, cut. Justin James, cut. All of his UFC wins over cut guys. Now the losses, Billy Q, Omar Morales, Sodi Youssef, Enrique Barzolo versus Andre Fili, all good guys. Fili's still cutting up a job. Barzolo's over there in Bellator gonna challenge for a title. It looks good. Sodi Youssef, his career's kind of tapered off a little bit, but talented. Omar Morales, he's also tapered off a bit, but holding down a job. Billy Q, yeah, about the same thing. Those are decent losses, but all of his wins, these low-level guys. So if you thought that David Onama was one of these flash in the pan, not all that good, maybe. But he made a believer out of me too, man. And I had a lot of money on Mason Jones, and it was a squeaker, absolute squeaker. This kid comes in with a 10-0 undefeated amateur record. You don't see a whole lot of people fight amateur for 10 fights, let alone go 10-0, so pretty impressive. But James Krause and company, man, they got him dialed in. Good game plan, super athletic kid, good striking, good ground game. Wrestling obviously needs work, but when he gets taken down, he explodes back up. Here's my issue with him. Second round knockout win, 12-second guillotine win, minute 41 submission, 301 first round, 348 first round, 142 of round 3, 44 seconds of the first round, 212 of the first round. I didn't think he could keep up that pace. I didn't think he could keep up that type of explosiveness. And the Mason Jones fight, he outstruck Mason Jones. No, they tied in the first round, draw 30-30 a strike, 30-30 apiece. He outstruck Mason Jones in the second and third round. Gave up 8 takedowns, still outstruck him throughout the course of the fight. Got up every time, pushed him to his limits. This kid looks like he could be good, and he's 27 years old. So it's a tough fight to give them Benitez. But yeah, you're right. 33-year-old Benitez kind of on his way out, and he's a gatekeeper. He fills in that gatekeeper type of role. But David Onama looks like he could be legit. So in terms of storyline, yeah, okay, let's get away from that. Here's the real key here. Benitez versus Billy Q. He only lands 57 strikes, gets knocked out in the third. Him versus Justin James. Well, I guess that's a first round knockout. Let's look at the fights that go a little longer. Him versus Omar Morales. He only lands 50 strikes through 15 minutes. Him versus Jason Knight. That'd be a career high for him, 85. That seems low for Onama. Onama's going to beat him 2-1, 3-1 on the punch count. He's faster than him. He's sharper than him. And I don't think Benitez is going to bring in this wrestling heavy game plan. If Benitez does decide to wrestle, he's going to pop back up. Mason Jones is a better grappler, is a better wrestler, and this kid got up routinely, and then he's going to put that pace back on you. The leg kicks, Mason Jones got a hell of a poker face, man. But against Benitez, he's gonna wear him down, make him a sitting target. And whereas old Benitez could take the shots, at least give this kid another 3 rounds in the octagon, new Benitez might not be able to take those shots. So I don't know if it's going to go the distance or it's going to be a knockout. But yeah, I got David Onama. I'm a believer, even though he's 0-1 in the UFC.
All right, moving on down, we have Jonathan Pearce taking on Christian Rodriguez. Pearce, a minus 330 favorite. Rodriguez can be had for plus 260. Who you got here, Code?
This seems like it would be your other parlay piece. Like, I know it's minus 330, but Jonathan Pearce has got the goods, and this looks like a really good fight for him. So initially he's supposed to take on Austin Lingo, and Lingo only pulled out of the fight like 3 days ago. Now you got Christian Rodriguez jumping in short notice. That in itself is going to be an uphill climb. Mm-hmm. So let's just look at Christian Rodriguez real quick, right? These are the things going against him. So he's at a Rufus Sport. He's 24 years old. He's super young. He's at a Rufus Sport, which is not a grappling-heavy gym. It's more of a kickboxing gym. And just like the Pettis brothers before him, just like Elias Garcia that was in the gym as well, just like some of the guys that have come out of Rufus Sport, he's flashy. He has good kickboxing. He's capable of knocking guys out, but his ground game is a lacking. He's a 5-2 amateur. At least that's what they've recorded. Yep. In terms of his pro career, 0-0 Jose Leon, for Bellator, even though they opted not to sign him after the fight. 1-1, 6-9 against Jason Huntley. John Pham 2-0. Sean Palas Gregorio 4-2. That's it. Now he's on the contender series against Junior Cortez. Junior Cortez had a lot of success pressing him up against the cage. In fact, his most success. He did get 3 takedowns, but they're kind of they're chintzy takedowns. Like, you can't really hold him down or get much going with it. But his best success came pressing this kid up against the cage. And Junior Cortez, not really all that good. So the kid wins on the contender series, Paul, by Christian Rodriguez. And Dana don't sign him. They don't offer him a contract. I mean, did not look good in the fight. So he goes to the regional scene where he defeats Ryan McIntosh, who is 19-36. He's not doing himself any favors. He's not fighting legit competition. He's very green. He's not. Now he's taking a fight with Jonathan Pearce. That's going to be a problem. Here's going to be his bigger problem, right? That fight with Junior Cortez, he missed weight, coming in at 138 pounds for his bantamweight clash. Part of the reason Dana didn't give him the contract, right? Because he missed weight. And Dana's got this thing where he won't give you the contract if you miss weight. For 138 pounds for a scheduled bantamweight fight. Jonathan Pearce, meanwhile, everyone keeps talking about the Joe Lozon fight. The fight was at 155.
Yep. Since
then, he's dropped down to 145, where he's ragdoll Kai Kamaka. He ragdolled Omar Morales. He's scoring multiple takedowns at will. He's just dominating them. At 145, this kid looks good. Yep. Great cardio, great ground and pound. Just keeps building up momentum as the fight goes. And he's taking over a guy that was fighting at bantamweight 2 fights ago. Shows no notable victories. Other than clipping him, because yes, Joe Lozon did clip him, so yeah, always could happen. I was at 55, man. Like, down at 45, taking out a bantamweight. Man, I like it. I think that he's just going to press him up against the cage if he needs to, but he's going to complete the takedowns, and he's going to smother him, batter him, put a beating on the kid, and open something up. Like, I get Rodriguez 7-0, and it's an MMA fight. Anything can happen. But as far as styles make fights, this is a very favorable style for JSP. He could come out looking like a poor man's version of GSP, but just take him down and smash him. I've been very impressed with his last 2 fights, and I think that this one lines up very good for him.
I'd kind of left him for dead after getting iced by Joe Lozon in the first round, but that was his UFC debut. I believe that fight was in Boston as well.
It was. You got mystical Joe Lozon in Boston.
Mystical Joe Lozon showing up in front of it. Joe Lozon hasn't looked the same ever since that fight either. Yeah, it was just one of those spots. But yeah, coming down to 145, the pace for him, and he's super, super strong. Insane. And the pace that he's able to keep just absolutely squashes these guys. So, yeah, like, I think he can, mind your P's and Q's while in the pocket, but push forward, use that size and strength and pace to just force us up against the cage, take it down as well, and make it an ugly fight. Don't kickbox the kickboxer. And I'm with you. Jonathan Pearce deserves to be the biggest favorite on the card. Well, the biggest favorite on the card that is posted, because Mario Bautista versus Jay Perrin doesn't have a line. Or at least as of an hour ago when we started this show, there wasn't a line. Let me see if there is one now. No, books probably are still like, what? they're probably still figuring out that this fight's on the card. Haven't had too much. Obviously, Mario Bautista was supposed to take on Khalid Taha. I don't know much about this Perrin guy. Do you?
Yeah, Jay Perrin, he was on the Contender Series as well and failed to get the contract, loses to Dwight Joseph by unanimous decision. It seems like he's just he's a grappler. He's a grappler. He's out of Team City Otong in Boston, but it seems like he's more of a Manny Bermudez type where doesn't mind getting on his back, doesn't mind spending time on his back, and he fishes for submissions. His losses, Zachariah Range 3-1, split decision. The next loss, Blair Tugman 7-6, split decision. His loss to Reginaldo Carvalho, submitted in the third. He effectively went 0-2 for Bellator. 0-2 for Bellator, back on the Massachusetts regional scene. He does pick up a win over Johnny Campbell and Kin Moy. In terms of Massachusetts regional scene, those are good wins, but that's all it. He's having some success within state. Goes to Contender Series, over 2 for Bellator. Next step up is Contender Series, and didn't look good against Dwight Joseph, I don't think. Banished back to the regional scene, and exactly it. He's just gone right back to the Massachusetts regional. One thing he's got going for him is that he had a fight scheduled 2 weeks after Mario Bautista, so he's not just rolling off the couch. But he doesn't have this concussive knockout power, right? Like he's never knocked out an opponent. No, that's a lie. He knocked out an opponent 6 years ago, five and a bit years ago. He knocked out a guy named Chad Kelly, not to be mistaken with Chaz Skelly. And in his second pro fight in 2015, he had knocked out a guy that was 2-0. He doesn't show the big power. The big power is how you're going to beat Mario Bautista. Because outside of getting caught in that Corey Sandhagen armbar, I don't think it's going to happen again. This kid, talented, super talented.
Yeah,
he can
Miles
wrestle.
Jones
He's
fight,
explosive.
everyone kind of thought to the moon with Mario Bautista, and then
And trust me, I got owned because Trevin Jones has a way of owning me, first of all.
Mhm.
And Bautista looked good in the first round. You knew he was going to be sharp. The kid moves excellent. He can wrestle. He's out of the MMA lab in Arizona, and he's just got a plethora of skills all over the place. You talk about the Miles John fight, flying knee, tight, looks good, able to mix in his wrestling, able to mix in his striking. First round against Jones, he's having his way. He's doing a good job. He's landing some big shots. The longer it goes, he gets grazed a few times, and you can tell they definitely get his attention. And then in the second round, absolutely just flattened, put his lights out. I thought he won the first round, for the record, did score the first round for Mario Bautista. In the second round, he gets caught. He was showing us all that potential. He was showing us all those skills. Unfortunately, Trevin Jones does hit like an absolute hammer and can do that to people. This fight against Khalid Taha also does hit like a hammer to a lesser extent, but can't really wrestle. So surely the game plan is, don't stand in front of this guy. Get your wrestling going. Take him down. Give him a grinding. And against Jay Perrin, now you can do whatever you want. I think if it stays standing, it's a big advantage to Mario Bautista. I don't think Perrin's got the type of power to clip him and really get his attention or his respect standing. And the fight does hit the ground. That's probably where Perrin would rather have it, but it would be Bautista dictating that he wants the fight there. Hopefully pass out a guard, try to get a half guard going because there's just not a whole lot of submissions to be caught in from half guard. But mind your P's and Q's, grind this guy, land some striking. Great. I just don't know what the line's going to be. In my mind, Bautista should be a 3-1 favorite. But because he's coming off a loss where he's winning, and for the record,
I think he'll be at least
he's a minus 230 favorite over Trevin Jones when he lost. I think all of that, it left a bad taste in people's mouths. I got burned on some parlays. I know it hurt me personally, but I can't discredit the fact that the kid is talented. He just got caught. I'm making excuses for him, but I think he rights the ship here and beats Jay Perrin. I don't know what the line is.
I mean,
if they give me minus 225, I'm playing it. If they give me anything more than that, I'm hesitant and not going heavy on it. If it's anything more than 3-1, I think you probably want to pass.
I mean, considering the other lines on this card, minus 250 plus 200, minus 250 plus 200 on Hill versus Walker, Porter versus Baudot, and there was another fight, and Daukaus versus Pickett. Like, he's going to be at least minus.
He'll be a 2-1 favorite, yeah.
He'll be at least minus 250, I think, in this.
Right.
I mean, I like the fact
that opener, anyway.
This Perrin guy, at least going through his record, doesn't seem to have like crippling power, because that seems to be our biggest concern with Mario Bautista at this point. He throws flying knees and really, really aggressive style, but if you can't take the punch coming back, you're always going to be limited to a degree. So it sounds like it's a pretty good matchup for him, but obviously we don't even have a line, so what are we even supposed to do? As always, on Twitter, we'll post all my plays on Saturday morning. It's gonna be a busy few days for me as I set up Mayo Media headquarters for the future. I'm gonna get in some action on David Onama. I'm not sure about what direction that line's gonna move because I don't know. Minus 155 probably is scaring some people off of somebody who's so untested as David Onama. But I was impressed with him coming into that Mason Jones fight. And I was even more impressed with him after that fight. That was a tough matchup. And I've made a bunch of money on Benitez over the years, but I don't know. Watching him get dropped by Billy Q was a big red flag there because Billy Q's not exactly some sort of power puncher, and he dropped him early in that fight. And I was just like, I was rewatching that, getting ready for this show today, and I'm like, if that's the new durability of Gabriel Benitez, I am not going to be a buyer on him. Parker Porter minus 250 seems like a decent parlay piece. Jonathan Pearce, sounds like both of us like him. I'll post all of my plays later on in the week. Probably going to watch weigh-ins this week because we're dealing with a real dicey card. Got to make sure that everybody's, all your ducks are in a row before backing some of these people at these prices. But without further ado, Cody, hit him with the PRP.
Yeah, we're going to go with Jamahal Hill. We're going to go with Kyle Daukaus, Nickolas Motta. Razak Alhassan is going to be our first underdog. We're going to go with Parker Porter, Chad Anheliger, Skelly. Oh, man. Diana Belbita is even money. Just Rose Clark, David Onama, Jonathan Pearce, and Mario Bautista. So effectively, we only have the one underdog, which is Abdul Razak Alhassan, and you got one even money pick. If I was to say who are the live underdogs, even though I'm not selecting them, I would say Stephanie Egger, maybe. Paul and I spoke about that. I would say Striegl only because of the 3-year-long layoff, but outside of that, I don't love him. Jim Miller, and Johnny Walker. And Johnny Walker does have a chance because last week I spoke to you, and one of my bad spots last week I spoke to you. I said, Tai Tuivasa, going to lose. Derrick Lewis, get the victory. But if you were going to bet an underdog, you could do worse than a big old Tai Tuivasa, who at least you know is going to go out there and throw. The line's always off when it's big old heavyweights. Yeah, fair enough. Jamahal Hill, Johnny Walker, it could be one of those. Like, I'm taking Hill. I like Hill. But if you're looking for some random underdog, well, as long as John Kavanagh hasn't fully ruined Walker, like he could make magic happen in theory.
Can we talk about the absurdity of people calling Derrick Lewis taking a dive?
Well, were people really saying that?
There are some people who were saying that, Cody.
Who?
Dude, I posted the search term on Twitter of
yeah, I do that sometimes too.
Lewis
seeing
dive.
People cry is the worst.
And it's hilarious. It's just like
really?
If you took the amount of punishment from Tai Tuivasa, not even the average person, 99.9% of people, if they took one of those strikes from Tai Tuivasa, you're folded out. You take multiples in a row, like it was getting greasy, and that's just what happens in heavyweight MMA. Like, and then he takes an absolute monster forearm, and then he crumbles forward. It's like that's what happens in heavyweight. I think when like people see these fights in slow motion on their TV, it's just like it really disconnects. Like that would be like me grabbing a baseball bat and just like swinging it right across your chin as hard as I could. That's probably what Tai Tuivasa landing an elbow on your chin feels like.
Yeah, I talked to you about this guy earlier, random guy in the bar, and he's a rugby fan, right? And he's like, you know anything about this Tai? He butchers the name, Tai Tuivasa. I was like, Tai Tuivasa? He's like, yeah, you know anything about that guy? I'm like, yeah, he's a former rugby player. And I was like, he's like, dude, I've watched his last fights. I'm a fan of his now. I watched his last 2 fights. He's like, that elbow that he connected with. He's like, that would have knocked out a horse. I was like, yeah, funny you say that. My buddy Paul was saying some people thought it was a fix. And he was just like dead set, like staring me down like, What do you mean people thought it was a fix? First of all,
some guy named So Raw writes, "Am I the only one who thinks Derrick Lewis took a dive yesterday?"
Yes,
Dude,
yes, I would hope he was the only one.
This guy Marcus, without question, Derrick Lewis took a dive. Hashtag UFC.
Oh my
There's
God.
actually like a segment of society that are so out of touch with heavyweight, like with the reality of heavyweight MMA, that they think, did Derrick Lewis get a little bit tired? Yeah, that's probably why he started getting hit by so many strikes. Like, he landed some of the best strikes that he could on Tai Tuivasa, and Tai was still there fighting. So it is what it is. Was he tired? Is that the reason why he took that damage and fell? Yeah, that it all works into each other, but man, like it there's a certain level of delusion. It's just like, well, if he was gonna take a dive, why didn't it be a lot easier to take that dive like in round one? Like, have a couple exchanges, eat a big shot, boom, you've taken the dive. Like, you don't have to take like 38. I don't know. I don't have the actual stat counts in front of me, but you don't have to take that much punishment to try to sell your dive if you were going to take a dive. It's insane. It's insane. Yeah, Derrick Lewis took a dive. Like, there's so many mouth breathers on Twitter. I can't even. If you have that opinion, and I see that opinion, I there's no way for me to ever take you seriously after seeing that opinion, because it's like, I don't know. Like, what do you think you're watching? You're watching 265-pound men, the most toughest 265-pound men, like, batter each other's skulls. Like, it looked about as clean and normal of a finish that you'll ever see in heavyweight MMA. Like, baffling that people think Derrick Lewis took a dive in front of his home crowd.
Yeah, I would, yeah, in front of his own home crowd. Yeah, I completely agree, dude. I would say that there's a huge fundamental difference between taking a dive and quitting, right? At worst, Derrick Lewis quit on himself. Maybe he did get tired. Maybe he thought, I can't win this fight. And maybe he quit right then and there. But a dive, to have premeditated, I'm going to throw this fight. See, here's the thing about that. If you were going to throw a fight, why would you have almost knocked out Tai Tuivasa? Dude, he had Tai Tuivasa on all fours, on the ground, rocked. Then he came at him and just chucked lunchbox-sized fists at him until the round ended. Crazy round. Good round. That's not how you take a dive. Nowhere in any dives do you bomb your opponent and nearly win the fight. That's called trying to win the fight. Second round, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that he was necessarily tired. I think he got hit and he got hurt. And Lewis has got a problem where he gets hit on the side of the head and he'll lose his balance. And it seemed like he was kind of on wobbly legs. Tai Tuivasa's got a hell of a chin. He's got good cardio for a big man. And he throws heavy power. To take a dive and to get knocked out like that was a bad knockout, dude. That elbow to the face, that's going to change things. No way you remember anything you did this week. No. Like, forget about that. Not how you take a dive. But here's what happens, right? So people bet the fights and Grisham wins and they're all pumped up, right? Parlays are intact. Jeremiah Wells wins, great, because people are invested in him. When Douglas D. Silvini Andrade beats Morozov, which is a upset, it ruins a lot of parlays. So you saw same thing on Twitter. Tons of people are rebuilding now. Now, Morozov threw the fight. Yes, he almost knocked out Andrade with an uppercut in the first round, smashed his head open, caught a large laceration over the forehead with some elbow strikes, and then picked him up and slammed him at the end of the first. But Paul, he lost the fight in the second when he got tired and he got clipped. So he must have taken a dive. But they rebuilt. And here's the problem with rebuilding. At that point, you would have gotten Ronnie Lawrence, big favorite, Carlos Ulberg, big favorite, Kyler Phillips, big favorite, Casey O'Neill, big favorite. Andre Arlovsky, Vandera, people knew it was close. In fact, a lot of people were taking Vandera for dog money, but there was no investment in Arlovsky. Where were they chasing that extra value? They're chasing with either Brunson or Cannonier and Derrick Lewis. People were betting Derrick Lewis on their tickets. I mean, he lost, it ruined, rebuilded tickets, and people got sour. And I see it all the time, man. People get sour because they lose something. Then it's like, this guy cost me that. This guy cost me that.
No.
And I look at my losses this week. My losses this week were Morozov almost knocked the guy out. This close to knocking out Andrade. Dominant 10-8 first round. And I lose in the second. Dems to breaks. That's how this goes sometimes. I'm not sour about it. My guy almost won in the first. Lewis almost knocked him out in the first. And Jared Vandera, I thought he could have won that fight. But it was a very close fight. Nothing really happened, but it was a close fight. In another world, we hit a 14 fight PRP. But there's going to be bounces. You don't get sour and go, and the worst is when they tag the fighter. Oh, my God. When they're like, you cost me $600 in a brulee. It's like, this guy just cost himself a $20,000 win bonus, some sponsorship money, some brain cells, some
He
friends.
doesn't care about your parlay.
Yeah, like, come on. I don't know how far we into the show. We passed an hour mark.
We're at an hour and 22 minutes and 50.
Okay, I can swear at this point because TV cuts it off after an hour. It's like, fuck off, dude. You're tagging the guy in it as if your fucking bad situation is somehow his problem. Like, that's actually the worst. That's the worst. Calling dies when sometimes it looks suspicious. I get it. But complaining because some fighter cost you money, like, that's awful, man. Happens in every sport. But what can you do? So this week, yeah, we're a little light on underdogs. So I think someone's probably going to come in here and shit in an apple pie. Hopefully those are the ones at the bottom of the ticket. Check out things on Saturday. Hopefully we'll go with the official picks then. Maybe even dabble in some props this week. And then check out the show next week because we're going to be in a new studio. So, Paul, exciting times do lie ahead.
Yes, sir. All right, that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed this show. For Cody Saftic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.